Well, hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Wahl-Eversharp Skyline. Now, what I have here is a Wahl-Eversharp Skyline, a vintage pen from the 1940s, sitting beside a much more modern Skyline 50. So we'll talk about the pens. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And if you'd like to discuss the Wahl-Eversharp Skyline or the more modern Wahl-Eversharp Skyline 50, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And perhaps you'd like to talk about trains, who knows? We'll see why in just a bit. So what I have here, this is the vintage pen which was introduced in 1941, just as the United States entered the Second World War. It was designed by Henry Dreyfuss, who helped design the New York Central Railroad 20th Century Limited. So we'll take a look here. Nice little bit gold-filled cap, by the way. Lever filler. Sort of a weird design, don't you think? Well, the idea is, if you look at it, let's see if I can do it here. I saw this photograph taken, but it was without the benefit of fingers, so I don't know quite how they did it. But end on, it looks kind of like a long train with the tail in the distance where my thumb and fingers are holding it. And the clip would be the trail of smoke and steam billowing from the boiler. A little fanciful, do you think? Well, let me show you. This is I forget what year, but this is a early version of the New York Central Railroad 20th Century Limited. Here's the one that Henry Dreyfuss designed. Do you see it? I see it. I don't know about you. So I put a little bit of links down below about the railroad, but this isn't a video about the railroad, but yeah, I'm kind of seeing that train there. It's a neat 1940s look. What one article I read called it a post-deco look. This is a lot of these were made out of a plastic called polystyrene. So the benefit of that is they could be injection molded versus being machined and required less hand finishing. But some of them have not held up well as a result of that plastic. Now this one has held up very well. This is from Pierre Gustafson's collection. A nice gold nib. Let's see if I can light that better. I really need to figure out how to light these nibs when I do this. I'm not good at that. Has a gold-filled cap. It's a jet black finish. One neat thing, these were, we're talking the beginning of the air age. So these had a breather tube on them to help make them more airplane-proof, apparently. And that meant it took them a little bit longer to fill. What'd they write down here? I just got off my outline. 5 pumps for a full fill as a result. It was discontinued in 1948 in favor of the Symphony. And I should mention, because I'm jumping around my outline now, wow, that was a mistake. The early polystyrene replaced celluloid in the 1940s, but it suffered from shrinkage, discoloration, and deterioration. But what you're looking at here is the largest selling pen of the early 1940s and in Wahl-Eversharp's entire history. In 1945, it was the best-selling pen in the United States. And there were many nibs available. This one, to me, looks like a flexible nib. If you follow my links, you'll see some others, but you can also see why I think that. It's those long tines. And it's flexible, too, so there is that. Apparently, Skyline and Skyliner were used interchangeably, even by the Wahl-Eversharp company, which is interesting. A little more branding there. And it was introduced because Wahl-Eversharp was falling way behind Parker and Schaefer at the time. Now, of course, if you know your pen history, you know that Parker later on acquired Wahl-Eversharp, and it was the cheap pen for them. Now this, I'm just going to show you briefly. This is a modern Skyline 50. This is the lower cost version. There is a higher cost version called the Skyline, which has a gold nib. This is, of course, a steel nib. So a lot of similarity there. You know, that whole deal with the locomotive. One difference, instead of being a lever filler, this is a cartridge converter filler, which I don't care for the design because I can't see the ink level, and it's really hard to really clean the pen out. So I will focus mostly on the vintage model. So we'll set this one aside. I should also mention, and I mentioned it when I purchased this pen, Wahl-Eversharp seems to sell with an absurd amount of packaging. Some of their pens are sold, I remember seeing one sold in a glass skyscraper case, and just like, really? I just want to buy a pen. This came with a wind-up metal car and a really ridiculous box for a pen. Throw in a cardboard sleeve, I'm happy. This, of course, being vintage, not an issue. So let's take a look at how it writes. So I have the loan and possible purchase of this pen through the generosity of Pierre Gustafson, who suggested I review a few of his pens. This was one of them. I'm not going to be filming a review of each one, but the ones that interested me, so I have 3 of them that I will be doing. This is one of them. The pen does, I don't like to post, but this is a pen I prefer to post. The ink in it, at his request, is Parker Quink Black. He did not want me to use Noodler's Bay State Blue for some reason. So you can already see, I don't do pressure. I don't like to push a pen to see what it can do. I used to be into that, but now I just, let it flow however it flows. I'm told I have a heavy hand. I may. But the thing is, I just let it do what comes naturally to it. And you can see it has a decent amount of line variation. Now, if I intentionally don't do any pressure, that's just the weight of the pen there. You can see it. It has a nice fine line, but it can also be very broad. You probably already predict how it's going to do with wetness and flow. No trouble keeping up. This is awesome. The smear test. Again, a bit of a test of the ink, but also somewhat of an indicator of the wetness of the pen. There is flexed. And oops, you didn't see much of that. And here is no pressure. A lot of ink either way. And then finally, this doesn't always go well with a very flexible nib. Yeah, really scratchy and gross. Now let's look at a longer form quote. So I think you saw, no trouble keeping up. It writes very smoothly. One thing I've discovered is this writing table seems to have migrated a bit that way, so I need to migrate it back this way because I was sitting at a kind of a weird angle to write, and I had it all perfect, so I don't know what I did. Maybe I bumped it vacuuming, but anyway, very nice pen. Now, thanks to this collaboration that I did, I've started doing what I call the Pierre Gustafson test. Just get an idea what a pen can do. He likens it to off-roading. I don't think he means on a gravel road. I think he means on a racetrack. But anyway, I think you can see that no matter what, this pen keeps up with you, whatever you do. Some of my metal cap pens won't stay on that pen holder there because there's not enough friction to hold them in place. So the ridges definitely perform a useful function there and hold it on. So, nothing more to add. Like I said, I am in negotiations about possibly purchasing this pen, so it may enter my permanent collection yet. We'll see. In the meantime, if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And if you'd like to talk about the Wahl-Eversharp Skyline, new or old, or its mysterious and excessive packaging, please feel free to leave a comment down below, or perhaps you have memories of the actual train that this is all based on. So thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.